What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Happier, Healthier Arkansas podcast hosted by the Specific Chiropractic Centers. I'm Dr. Cam.
And I'm Dr. Chris, and we just want to thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode. If you haven't done so already, please click that subscribe button, and thank you for joining us on our mission towards making Arkansas the happiest and healthiest state on the planet.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Happier, Healthier Arkansas. Here at the Specific Chiropractic Centers, we are on a mission to make Arkansas the happiest, healthiest state on the entire planet by going from number 49th to number 1 in overall health. And we love to empower people to be the pilot of their health rather than the passengers. And that's exactly why we're doing this podcast today. I am genuinely excited to be able to do this podcast. I already know it's going to be incredible. I've had wonderful conversations with this gentleman. I'm excited for you all to be able to dive into the insight and wisdom that we have with this. And without further ado, I would like to introduce the one and only John Bradshaw.
Hey, man, appreciate you for having me, man.
John, thank you so much for coming. We got connected through your wife.
Yes.
She's a patient here, and so kind of talk about that journey of how kind of we got connected and stuff like that.
Okay, so my wife had complex regional pain syndrome, which is a very difficult, very painful thing that really is derived from an incident where maybe you had a significant break or some kind of traumatic incident physically. And, we'd been many years, I'd say at least 10 years, trying to find a way to provide a better quality of life for her. And so we'd been to Mayo, we'd been to holistic places, spent a lot of money trying to find it. Insurance helped us, in the big pharma kind of world, I guess. Mm-hmm. But a lot of money out of pocket. And a buddy of mine at church actually mentioned you from a business meeting up here in Little Rock somewhere. And He said, man, God just put it on my heart that Cassie needs to go see this man. And she was a little resistant just because she'd been poked and prodded at.
For sure.
Hadn't found that answer yet. And was a little skeptical, actually. And so my mother-in-law and myself really pushed her pretty hard. And she said, okay, I'll try it. But, man, I will tell you, I'm grateful, brother. What you guys do here is different than anything else, that we've seen. We've tried everything just about. I mean, I would say almost everything that the world has to offer other than chiropractic care.
And as a husband, people typically don't understand, primarily the clinic is women, but especially, when the husband's involved, how has that, just briefly talk about as a husband, how is it kind of impacted, your marriage now after care?
So, I mean, before care, I'll tell you, it puts a strain. Anytime you have a significant loved one or a significant family member that is dealing with chronic pain, the quality of life is pretty tough. We've got 2 kids, and they grew up in their younger teenage years up until now. They're 19 and 16, with mom really fighting. And she's a warrior, man. I'm telling you, I've been curled up in a corner, and I'm a tough military guy, but so I got a lot of respect for the fight that she has fought to be the wife and the mother that she is. I'm grateful for it. But after she started getting care from you, I started to notice some changes in sleep pattern. I started to notice some difference in her quality of life as far as just being able to go and do and not need rest days and not have to recover as long. But as it kind of went on, I will tell you, we're at a place now because she's completed the program, really, and she's going to continue to do some follow-up care. But she couldn't wear heels. It was in her legs. She had that break in her ankle, and she wore flats. She couldn't wear tennis shoes.
I know that was a big goal of hers. Yeah,
and that was one of her things. She wanted to wear heels again. And so the other day at church, she wore heels.
Come on.
Didn't pay for it, like she was good. And then, just the energy and the going and doing and, like her and I have spent a lot of time out on the boat fishing. And, boats are unstable. And she does really well with it, which before, maybe a day here or there, she might go for a couple hours, but no, we're 2-3 days a week. And
I'm seeing those fish y'all are catching.
Yeah.
There's some nice sized fish.
There's some good ones. Good Lord's blessed us. But I'll tell you, it's been a wonderful thing. And I know that as a doctor, you talk to a lot of people, but the relief as a husband to see that your wife is no longer dealing with that kind of pain does my heart so well, and really just makes me super grateful that God put you in our life, and that God has His promises have been made true, and we're standing in those healing promises, and and she's walking those things out. And man, you want to talk about just joyful and bringing some really cool things into our life in a way that make you appreciate God and appreciate the knowledge that He's blessed man with. So.
Yeah, and with that, that's where she was coming in on a regular office visit, and we were talking one day about your business, and when she had mentioned it, I was like, that makes so much sense, because a big problem that we're having, not only in America but also here in Arkansas, is crime rate.
Yes.
Crime rate is going up, and the big thing that she was talking to me about, and that's why we connected about it, was your business, Valor Defense Consulting.
Yes.
Because essentially, explain a little bit what Valor Defense Consulting does.
So originally we were Arkansas Concealed Tactical, and we wanted to kind of change that name, make it a little bit bigger on a marketable scale. And we partnered with a good friend of mine, very business savvy, very, very Christian, very good guy. And really at the end of the day, both of our hearts and the whole objective of the company is to provide people with a skill set, with a mindset, with a vigilance to prepare in case something that is so egregious happens to them, that they can navigate that situation with the right tools, hopefully, to lessen the impact on their life.
Yeah,
so
and it's never just, we always tend to think that it's, obviously we're praying that it never has to happen, right? But in the event that it does, we know exactly what it is to do. So what are some of I know we talked about churches, you help a lot of churches. So kind of go into that.
Okay. So really what we do is we provide training and consulting for corporate offices or corporate companies, as well as churches, schools. So we can help set up church security teams. We can train those church security teams. We can help build the processes that are necessary for crisis management or a medical situation, or responding to, and even the tactical aspect of some things. But most of the time you're dealing with a medical thing as a church security team, or a disruption in a church, and we teach some mitigation techniques there. And how, we want people to be in church, and if they're in a bad place, that's where they probably should be. That's a great place for them to be. But really the school side of the house, the active shooter prevention and response program. So we've done quite a few schools, some bigger schools and some smaller schools, some private schools as well. And so we really start off by doing a security assessment, a physical security assessment of what you have in place, look at the vulnerabilities and the limitation and constraints that you have in order to improve with what you have.
Right.
And then we give them a list of what they could do, all right, and it's up to them. They get to make the choice. It's a consulting, so I'm not the decision maker. So based off of finances and the environment they want to create, we give them a list of things they can do to improve their physical security, to help prevent or to mitigate, the impact of the situation if it were to occur. But then we look at their policies, and the education department does a good job making sure that there's a lot of policies for those schools, and they're audited and made sure that they follow a lot of those things. But really with the active shooter prevention, when you think of fires, there's only been, I believe, and I may be off on this, it's been a while since I read this, but there's only been like two kids that have passed away in a fire since early 1900s. But we practice the fire drill all the time.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But what I've seen is there was a need in the school districts, within the school system, to practice and to have a solid plan, and people that were well trained to execute that emergency action plan. And it really wasn't there. And so we started this business, and we started doing that and got a lot of great feedback. And people walk into our training on that side, and just about every side really, they're kind of fearful, like, of
course.
But when you don't have the knowledge of how to do something, then I think it's human nature that you kind of fear or anxiety of how to manage or how to do, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yep, and you won't know until it happens.
And so
Yep.
the training that we do really puts them in some scenarios through Aerosoft and different things. And after we've taught the classroom instruction of what to do, we go put it into practical exercise. And they have to navigate to those situations. And what we have found is confidence afterwards, a vigilant thought process. And really, we've gotten a lot of feedback that where I was fearful before, and not that it's completely gone, because if it happens, it's going to be pretty tough.
Oh, yeah.
And we make sure people understand, like, we're not going to teach you how to fix it all. Like,
right.
There's going to be some loss of life if somebody wants to take some. We're trying to teach you a skill set that helps you to absolutely minimize the impact of the loss of life.
And the biggest thing too when it comes to that is, although we're not thinking about it consciously, it may be subconscious. When there's teachers teaching, and then like something just happened in, let's say, Colorado, or while there's a pastor preaching, and then there was a church event that happened in South Carolina. It's like, it may not be conscious, but it is subconscious of like, what if this happens? One thing that I was very interested in, because obviously there are people that listen to the podcast that go to church, the kids go to school, but they're also probably wondering, okay, those are nice, but what about at home?
No, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
what are some ways that people can identify? What are some ways that people can identify the mishaps within their home when it comes to home security, and kind of elevate their level of comfortability just in case anything were to happen?
Okay. Excellent question. And I think that for me, I think as a man, and there's probably some people out there listening that are single moms, and that kind of responsibility kind of falls on you. But we that are leaders in our family have an obligation to protect physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, the people that we care about, and the people that we're around every day. And so even as employers or church leaders, you have that same responsibility. But for me, that Genesis moment of manhood, stepping into marriage, stepping into raising children, those are my primary responsibilities.
Yep.
And so for me, I took a vested interest in that well before the company. But some of the things you can do at home. Let's just start on the exterior and we'll work our way in. When you pull in your drive, well, first off, do you know the statistics of crime in your area? What is the propensity for certain things to happen? It's easy. You can get on citydata.com or many other websites and find out exactly what those things are that will help you prepare for what are probably your highest propensity of incidents to happen. But when you pull in your driveway, when you pull in your driveway, what are you looking at? Are you aware? How did you leave your house? Were the lights on? Were they off? Was the garage door cracked a little bit because maybe you had some paint or something in there and you wanted it to air out? Did you have windows open? Was your maybe you have a separate building out to the side, which a lot of people do, and was that locked up and now it's open? You look at the windows in other cars. Maybe you parked in your driveway, or any of them busted out. Anything out of place. So do you have a mindset of vigilance to just look and observe and take in information and have a critical thought process of what could be? But then, whenever you really start looking at the home itself, what do your shrubs look like? A lot of people have landscaping around their house. Is there a place that as you're trying to unlock your door and you're not really paying attention to anything else, that somebody could be right there and you not know it? What does the lighting look like? Lighting's pretty cheap for the most part. Replacing a loved one is invaluable. Replacing everything that you might have as far as finances, is a very difficult process. So even if somebody just robs you, that's a life-changing event. And so prevention goes a long way. So, to cut those shrubs back or even pull them out might be an option for you. And that's a decision you got to make. But the lighting, definitely big. Do you have a camera system that will give you alerts? I mean, Google cameras, about $200 at Sam's Club, will send you all the alerts you want to the point of annoyance.
Movement detected, and there's like a little shrub.
Everything from talking to movement to vehicles to whatever that might be, and you can kind of adjust it and set it up for what you want. We have Ring, so you can get cameras through Ring. You can get our doorbells through Ring. You can get them on the front and back of your house, and it just wires right in. And they're Wi-Fi, so as long as you've got Wi-Fi, you're able to use that. And we see every time our kids leave the house and come in, we see when the mailman comes. I see traffic that drives by. And we've even had a couple of incidents, and I can talk over it. And I scared this guy one day. We have a youth challenge, which is kind of like a rehab center just down from the house. This guy come banging on my door, and nobody was home. And he's getting loud banging on my door, like very hard.
Okay.
And I'm like, I don't know, half a state away. And so, but I was able to get on my phone and go, "Hey, buddy, can I help you?" And he said, "Who's this?" Well, of course, I'm a smart aleck at times, and I said, "This is God." and of course, he's looking around, like looking for where this is coming from. I said, "Hey, look, man, I'm the owner of the home." I told him, I said, "Look, I said, nobody here that you need to talk to. You need to leave. Stop banging on my door." And he was talking a little crazy, and I said, "Look, man," I said, "if you don't leave, I'm gonna call the police." And so he's kept me, went around the back of my house. And so I called the county sheriff, and they came and picked him up. So I don't think he had done anything wrong.
Yeah.
He just didn't need to be where he was at.
Yep.
But my wife was coming home from town. She could have walked right into that incident had I not had some surveillance of some sort.
Wow.
And so, you start looking at your home, and just as simple as your front door, what's it made of? Is it a solid door? What kind of glass does it have in it? If I break the glass, could I easily unlock it? And here's the thing, you don't want to make a prison, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, right.
But there's some simple things you can do to shore things like windows and glass and doors up. So just there's a lot of window companies out there that have that are partnered up with 3M, 3 millimeter, which is the name brand. But they make a film that goes over the interior and exterior of those windows. And you can get them at different diameters of thickness, all the way from, it takes me 2 minutes to break it in with a bat or a hammer or whatever that is, but I can still shoot through it, all the way up to a 7.62, which, an AK-47 round couldn't shoot through it. And what you're trying to do there is buy space, time, opportunity, a deterrence. Maybe somebody gives up because they don't want to get caught and they realize this is taking too long. And you never have to face that threat if you're in bed with your wife and your kids are down the hall.
Yes.
But, one of the most simple things you can do is if you just look at the screws that are in the doors of the exterior doors of your home. And, how long are they? So all those doors, they're framed up. So they have 2x4s, multiple of them that are right there to make sure that door doesn't come in and out off of or away from where it's at, and it's supported properly. It's kind of the way they build them.
So what's the standard?
So the standard screw is very small. We're talking, ½ inch or less. And so that really just gets into that finished kind of almost fake wood that they create those frames out of. And if you've ever installed one, it's very easy to end up in a place where, all right, well, I can't even put this screw in there, it won't stay, because the wood's not great quality a lot of times. So, but if you were to put a 3-inch screw in there, right, then you're going to anchor into those 2x4s that are beyond the frame of that door. And we're going from, if you have those small screws in there, I can kick that door open with very little effort, even if I'm not a extremely physical guy.
Just a kick.
But a pretty hard kick will just, maybe 1 or 2, it's open. And so what you want to do is create a barrier that buys you time to get to your weapon system if you have one, or if you have a plan in place, which we'll get to. But really, if you put those 3-inch screws in there, and then you put longer screws in the other side, the actual door itself, you can kick on that door for a long time, and it's going to be very, very difficult to get in. So I've tried it, and I'm telling you, you talk about some effort.
Oh yeah.
5, 6, 7 minutes of, I'm talking just giving it everything you got, putting your shoulder in it, what we call donkey kicking. You turn around and kick it from behind to a front kick. You'd have to have a battering ram just about. And so, when you lock your house when you leave, do you lock your deadbolt?
Right.
Because this is how simple it is to get into a door. And I don't want to give any bad people some tricks, but if you take a credit card and you give me a typical door that has no other safety and you didn't lock that deadbolt, within about probably 5 or 6 seconds, I'm in your house.
Right.
And so that's why it's important to lock your deadbolts. Make sure you have quality locking mechanisms on those doors. But it's pretty inexpensive to do the little chimes that they put on windows. So if a window does get opened that maybe you forgot to lock, that chime goes off. Or if you have an actual alarm system, a lot of those will sound the alarm, which is very loud, by opening the window.
So then let's say someone is now in the house. Okay. Someone is now in the house.
Now we've got real serious.
Yep. Yeah. So now it's like, high alert.
Yep.
Man, this is so good. So now we're on high alert. Someone inside of the house. What are some things that we should have in place in that event?
Okay, so rehearsals are a thing. So in the military, I'm an infantry guy. So in the military, actions on the objective is like if you don't do anything else before you step up on a mission, that's the thing you do. So practically exercising the things that you want to do in the situation that you might find yourself in. So you kind of have to somewhat practice those real life situations. Like a fire drill almost.
Yep.
And so do you have a plan? Number one. Have you even thought it out? Most people don't. A lot of people live in a false sense of reality, or a false sense of security, I guess, so to speak, not necessarily reality. So, we feel like, we'll call the police. Well, guess what? I live in a county.
Right.
You know how long it's going to take? I mean, we might have 3, maybe 4 officers in all of the county that are going to respond to that. And so we're talking 15 to 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Most of those events happen within about 2-3 minutes, and you're in a bad spot. And so, yes, absolutely call the police, absolutely call 911, but you should be doing some other things. And so some of the things I would say are most important is that if you have children in the home especially, do you have weapons? Do you have weapons? And a weapon doesn't have to be a firearm. Everybody's got kitchen knives, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Everybody, there's a lot of golfers out there. A golf club can be a weapon. Anything that you could physically do damage to somebody with is a weapon. May not be its intended creation or created for that intended purpose. But I think that, you have to kind of look around and think that through. And, and I'm not saying that we want to go out and be a proponent of just causing physical harm to people. But if somebody wants to hurt you, and this is kind of how I see it. I listened to a podcast not too long ago that actually summed this up very well, so it helped me to kind of put my thoughts together on this. The temple, Jesus actually went into the courtyard and drove out the money changers. And it was because they had corrupted the temple. People weren't allowed to go in and worship. The common people weren't. So, he got righteously kind of mafioso on that, and kind of pushed them out, and created a whip, and hey, physically, I'm going to put it on you.
Out.
And so with that, our bodies is what the Bible says. The Bible says our bodies are a temple. It's a dwelling place for the Holy Spirit. And there may be some people out there that don't have the same faith, which 100% respect. But for me, that's kind of where I go when I start as a man thinking about when and if I should do physical harm to somebody. Okay, well, are you attacking the temple of God?
Right.
Are you this life that God ordained and created and holds the Holy Spirit and purpose to do great things in this world to bring the kingdom to earth? Are you going to physically attack that?
Yeah.
And if you are, then I have a responsibility as a man to stop you from doing that.
Especially if it relates to those as men within our domain.
Absolutely.
Because, if it's one thing I know about you is you are a family man.
Very much so.
And it's like, that's one thing that I, after our conversation not too long ago, that's one thing that I realize is all these godly men are coming into my life, and and I was really encouraged by our conversation because it's we are, as men, we're responsible for those that are within our domain. We're responsible here for each other. We're responsible for our families. We're responsible for all these different things. So anything that we can put as a barrier between harm of those within our domain, whether it's patients in this clinic, whether it's family at home, whether it's people at church, it's we should have things set in place to be able to protect them. Because I'm originally from Metro Detroit. Okay. And so it's me being from that area, seeing essentially how Detroit, and it was already pretty far gone by the time I was born, but Detroit now, they're finally rebuilding it, but it took a long time.
Yeah.
And it's, coming here, I see in Little Rock specifically, things look very similar to
just a smaller scale,
just
because not as many people.
Exactly. And so that's why, with what you're saying, I'm hoping that if this impacts one person, to be able to, understand, set up parameters in their home to be able to protect their families, protect their loved ones, protect themselves, because this life is special. And we know that sin is within the world, right?
Yes.
And that people are going to essentially go against God's orders of protecting the temple, and they're going to want to come, and the thief wants to steal, kill, and destroy.
That's
and
right.
that includes us.
Yes.
And so if someone comes into our home, I don't want to give them an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And I know you're the same way.
Well, and I would say this: I think most people try to have a sanctuary, a safe place that is full of peace and joy and love, and make a home where a house is, right? And so anytime somebody comes in there and violates that, it disrupts, kind of that way of life.
Yep.
And so, as far as that plan is concerned, so a couple of things within the plan that I would say are very, very important is, do you have some weapons? If so, where are they at? How do you position them to be able to defend yourself?
Right.
If you have a firearm, all right, which I'm a proponent of carrying a firearm, and again, we can go back to Jesus in the red letters saying that if you do not have a sword on the journey, then sell your cloak and buy one, or your robe and buy one. So I mean, we can tie that in there, and I'll use that as my hey, that's why Second Amendment's there.
Yeah.
But I believe that you have a right, and a constitutional right, to carry a firearm. But also, you have a biblical context to defend your physical self. But with that, where's that weapon placed at? What position do you keep it stored?
Yeah.
Is it loaded? Is the magazine out? For me, magazine's in always. There's always one in the chamber, but I have a lot of time and practice and seriously, like 22 years of military experience working with weapons, and carried a weapon most of my adult life. I do a lot of shooting on my own.
Yeah.
I hunt and I fish and I do a lot of things outdoorsy. So safety is kind of built in subconsciously. Even it's not even a thought these days.
Right.
I have to make myself go safety conscious more and more just to be for sure I'm solid.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to cause my family members harm. But is it in a lockbox? Well, how
Right.
long does it take you to get into that once you realize? And at what point do you realize? So is it too late and they're already in your house, or did you hear them start kicking in your door?
Right.
So you've got to kind of be mindful of, are you going to recognize it before they're actually in your home? But with that weapon system, have you trained enough to tactically be proficient?
And be ready.
And so if I were to come in your home, and look around, I could teach you how to pie a corner. And for you guys, it's not pumpkin pie, even though we all love pecan and pumpkin pie and Mama's apple pie. But no, pie in a corner is manipulating a corner to where I can see more of that individual and they see very little of me, but I can engage a threat. Do you know how to use cover and concealment, or what the difference is? Cover will actually stop a bullet. Concealment won't. So, as you start to define that, you got to look around your house and figure out what those are. And so as you move through your house, you should kind of be mindful of, okay, if they're here or they're there, that's the entry point, and I'm moving to this place in order to engage a threat because I want to protect my family. What cover and concealment do I have? How do I move? How do I walk? Should I be in a hurry? Is it going to be low light? Do I have a flashlight?
Right.
Because you never know. Did my kids get up and go investigate?
Right.
Maybe my wife was up because she doesn't sleep much.
Yep.
So you never know. And we want to be able to recognize the threat. So that's a thing as well. But let's take it a step further. So we've got the exterior things that you can do, and there's a lot more to this. So for time's sake, we'll keep it pretty simple. But we have a plan, all right, of some sort. But there's been many documented cases of a husband or a wife hurting a loved one in their home, or even a child, because somebody came and opened the door. And I can't remember when it was some years back or where it was, but I remember hearing the story that this husband, they had heard something. It ended up being nothing. He came back to the bedroom. The wife had gotten into the bathroom and locked the door and had a weapon of her own, which was the plan. But she had no way to recognize who he was. So when he was trying to get in the door, she shot through the door and actually killed him. And so one of the other things, if we just take it a step further, is that wherever that barricading place is for your loved ones, do you have a running password?
Yeah.
Or a number combination that you could meet? So, for instance, if it's 10 and I say 5, well, you know it's 10. I'm not going to say 10. I'm just going to say 5. Well, if you say 5, now we know we're good. So it's as simple as that. You don't have to make it complicated.
Right.
Or it could be, I don't know, a family pet's name and maybe somebody's favorite food in the house. So our dog's name is Willow, and we like Chinese food.
Right.
So if I say Willow, and you say Chinese, most people aren't going to associate. So you don't want it to be something that somebody can guess or kind of associate together. It needs to be somewhat complicated as far as that's concerned. But that it needs to be random, like off the wall, 2 different words or a phrase that somebody answers.
Wow.
And that lets you know that your loved one's on the other side of the door, not somebody that's trying to cause you harm. So that's just simple things like that.
So wow. We, when it comes to, especially when it comes to stuff like this, man, it's like, and I don't think, especially when we talk, I know I didn't really think of it that way. Mm-hmm. And that's why with this episode, people being able to listen and at least just spark an interest of like, wow, you know what? Like maybe I should at least consider the corners of my home. I should consider having a weapon in the house, right? A firearm in the house. I should consider, the password situation. I should consider a plan, an evacuation or whatever it is. But I've been blessed by our conversations. I know people are going to be blessed by this episode, brother. But if it was one thing that you would recommend to the people that are listening as a major take-home moment, what would that be? It could be anything.
So I would say vigilance. And when I say vigilance, it is to be aware of your surroundings. Most people walk around in a world of cell phones, in a world of what we would call a microwave society and instant gratification, looking for the selfish things that we try to put in our lives to fulfill, make us happy. Yeah. And you see it all the time. People in restaurants, they have zero idea what's going on around them. But there could be some pretty tough things happening. And so, no matter where you go, that can remain, whether you're on vacation, whether you're driving down the road and somebody's acting, people drive crazy, that could save your life there. If you're at home and, you hear a knock at the door, being aware that, okay, well, nobody's supposed to be here. It could be something crazy, like what measures do I have in place just to be sure? And here's the thing. The other thing I'd leave you with is don't be paranoid. Mm-hmm. Fear is not of the Lord, but fear really derives from a lack of preparation. But I think having a plan, preparing, being vigilant, takes away that fear. And practicing the plan, practicing with your weapon system, if you choose to carry a weapon, will make you a lot more comfortable. And there's plenty of times that I've had to get up in the middle of the night and go check out, see if somebody got in my truck. 'Cause my wife said it sounded like somebody was outside. So and that is uncomfortable. Even as a guy with combat experience, that's an infantry guy, I have when I slip out the door and start navigating around the house or I'm fearful because I don't want to do somebody harm. Right. But I really want to make sure my family's safe. So. But it's a big step to take if you're not minded that way. Is I challenge you to kind of really maybe change your mindset, and don't take police officers for granted. Don't take the fire department for granted. Don't take your neighbors for granted that may be able to assist and help. But at the same time, the speed and timeline that it would take for them to be able to get to you to do what it is that needs to be done to protect your family, most likely isn't going to be fast enough.
So the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway you want for people is that term vigilance.
That's right.
And to be vigilant in everything that, be vigilant in everything.
That's
and
what I was
just to
saying.
Be aware.
Just be aware.
I am super encouraged by this conversation. I know the people that are listening are. I know that you all that are listening are like, wow, I didn't realize any of this is a thing. But that's the reason why I wanted you on the podcast, John, is because, in making Arkansas happier and healthier, Absolutely. What you do is doing you're doing that, right? Because if you can protect people, if you can protect yourself and protect those that you love, you can essentially have generations of happiness and health. So God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much for coming out.
Appreciate
you're
you,
a
sir.
legend.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Happier, Healthier Arkansas. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate your guys' support. Please click that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Thank you for joining us.
And if you're on a mission to help make Arkansas happier, healthier with us, again, please feel free to share this with anyone that you know so that way we can continue to help perpetuate the mission of making Arkansas the happiest, healthiest state on the entire planet.
Until next time,
See ya!